Thom Hartmann here on the news. You need to know this. What started more than a year ago when hundreds of thousands of working Americans took to the streets in Madison, Wisconsin to protest against an overt war on unions culminates today as Wisconsinites hit the polls to determine the fate of Governor Scott Walker in the state's first ever gubernatorial recall election. Unfortunately for working people who gathered more than 1 million signatures to force the recall election against Walker and have re-energized the national labor movement, they're up against a tsunami of out-of-state corporate cash, something that will be very hard to overcome this election day. Walker is massively outspending his Democratic rival, Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, with more than $30 million compared to Barrett's $4 million. Two-thirds of Walker's contributions have come from out-of-state donors like banksters and oil barons, whereas three-quarters of Barrett's money is from Wisconsin. And if that alone isn't enough to seal the deal for Walker, an obscure election law passed by Republicans in the state last year could prevent tens of thousands of college students from voting if they didn't update their addresses before graduating from school last month. In poll after poll, Walker has held a narrow but consistent lead over Barrett, proving that organized money does indeed trump organized people, which could mean real trouble for progressives this year, as corporate super PACs have pledged over $1 billion to defeat progressives in this year's elections. Despite the results of today's contests in Wisconsin, one thing is clear: we, the people, will need to be even more organized and more active than ever if we want to stop the oligarchs from buying our democracy like they're trying to do in Wisconsin. In screwed news, Florida Governor Rick Scott isn't the only one purging Democratic voters off the rolls. In Texas, as many as 1.5 million voters could lose their right to vote, according to the Houston Chronicle. Already, 1 in 10 Texans has seen their voting rights suspended. And looking at voters under the age of 30, also known as people who mostly vote for Democrats, 1 in 5 have had their voting rights suspended, in most cases without even knowing it. The Houston Chronicle is warning readers to keep an eye on their mailbox in case they receive voter cancellation forms. Just like in Florida, the data Texas is using to remove voters is filled with errors. Between 2008 and 2010, 300,000 eligible voters were removed from the rolls. Someone needs to remind Republican Party officials who are engaged in a massive nationwide voter purge that living in a democracy means making it easier for Americans to vote. The Republicans want an oligarchy, which is why they're working so hard to deny millions of young Americans their voice at the ballot box. The best of the rest of the news, Senator Marco Rubio's name has been floated around as a potential vice presidential pick for Mitt Romney, but a new report by investigative reporter Lee Fong suggests that Rubio might already be taken by K Street. As Fong discovered, Rubio's chief of staff, Cesar Condo, has received as much as $100,000 from a high-powered lobbying firm that he has a stake in just since taking a job in Rubio's office. Condo left the lobbying firm, Navigators Global, in January of last year, just before joining Rubio, but he still has a financial stake in the firm and makes big bucks when the firm's clients do well. Those clients include banksters, health insurers, and private prison corporations. So if Romney does pick Rubio as his Veep, will Rubio represent the American people, or will he keep doing the bidding of K Street lobbyists? When banks do well, their CEOs collect big paychecks. When banks do poorly, their CEOs collect even bigger paychecks. That's the story coming out of Wall Street, where pay for the top CEOs increased more than 20% in 2011, according to a new report by Bloomberg News. That follows a 26% pay increase in 2010 as well. Last year, revenues, profits, and stock prices plummeted at 33 of the 50 biggest financial institutions, yet their CEOs still got huge pay raises. Just when you thought Wall Street couldn't lose any more accountability for its actions, we now discover banksters get fat checks regardless of how their banks do. A new survey by the Pew Research Center shows that Americans are now more divided than ever when it comes to their political beliefs. 25 years ago, race and education were the two primary divides in American society, but today it is political beliefs, as Americans are 50% more likely to be divided by being a Republican or Democrat than being black, white, or Hispanic. Pew believes the huge political divide is the result of the Republican Party taking a far more hardline stance against this government our founders created for us. In the last 3 years, Republicans have made dismantling FDR's New Deal their top priority, behind, of course, making President Obama a one-term president. They've appealed to the extremes in their party to carry out this agenda, silencing the moderate voices within the party. As a result, America is being ripped apart. And finally, while all presidential candidates most likely vote for themselves on Election Day, Mitt Romney has a little extra incentive to punch his own name. The group Citizens for Tax Justice discovered that Romney will save $5 million on his income tax bill if he wins and is able to put into place his so-called tax reform plan. Currently, Romney pays 14.7% in taxes, far less than most middle-class American families. And under his plan, that tax rate would drop to just 13.1%. Whereas under President Obama's plan, a quarter billionaire like Romney would have to pay his fair share like all working Americans. For a guy who made a living laying off thousands of workers to crank up his own wealth, is it really far-fetched to think Romney would use running for president to crank up his own wealth? Somehow I don't think so. And that's the way it is today, Tuesday, June 5th, 2012. I'm Thom Hartmann on the news.